Okay, welcome to everybody's favorite or least favorite module, building a keyword optimized resume and LinkedIn profile. So the goal of this is to get you through this resume process as quickly as possible because, as we will remind you multiple times throughout this program, your resume is never going to be the thing that actually gets you the job, but we essentially just need to make sure it's not preventing you from getting any jobs or preventing you from getting any conversations, I should say. And also giving you an added chance at conversations by having recruiters and hiring managers reach out to you when they find you in job boards and, of course, on LinkedIn. So we'll go through the ingredients of a perfect resume, how to structure it, what the final product should look like, and actually the homework assignment. We'll go over that at the end. Shouldn't even really call it a homework assignment. It's going to be a copy and paste assignment. So first thing that we're going to look at, I know this is a little blurry, but I wanted to just get it all on one page so we could go through and reference this as we break down each of these different sections. First is going to be header, very simple there. Your summary, we've got 1 to 2 paragraphs usually, plus a couple of bullet points if you have some impressive stats or you're more than 10 years in your 10 years in your career. That's typically when we'll use the career highlight section. We've got responsibilities, which are very generic, very general. This is essentially copying and pasting from the job descriptions because these are the keywords that recruiters and hiring managers are going to be searching for. Then right after that, this is where we get really, really specific with your quantifiable accomplishments. I'll go through that more in depth later on. Then at the bottom, again, if you have 10 plus years of experience, we will use this other professional experience, or sometimes folks will use this as a volunteer section, just if there's anything else that they want to talk about, even if like the stuff that they are doing isn't necessarily relevant to the specific role that they are targeting right now. Next is your education. And last, but of course not least, is going to be where we get the bulk of our keyword optimization in. And we'll go through all of that in depth. Now, very important, 2 important things I should say for your header. You're just going to have your name, your phone number, your email hyperlinked, your city, usually city and state, unless it's like Miami. The zip code, I'll go through that why in the next module you want to have your zip code there. For now, just trust us and do that. And then your LinkedIn profile hyperlinked here as well. That is it for the header. As soon as you do that, you are ready to move into the summary. Now, very important here. Everything in your resume should be tailored to one specific role. So we are not going to talk about everything that you have done during your career. We are only going to talk about the things that are relevant to somebody who is looking at you for a senior customer success manager role or a chief operating officer role, whatever you're going for, whatever those keywords or whatever matters for that specific role, that is the only things that we are going to include on your resume. And yes, you have done a ton of other things. We don't start with what you've done. We start with what folks are going to be looking for. So highly effective resume, and ultimately this will also be your LinkedIn summary or about section. They all follow the exact same template. And as we go through this, I'm going to give you 2 to 5 examples for each of these sections. So we always start with the years of experience, the industry, and skill set. So for example, over 8 years, you wouldn't need the plus there, over 8 years experience developing and executing global marketing and publicity campaigns. That is the skill set in the entertainment industry. That is the industry. Then you can share some info that a recruiter or a hiring manager is going to care about. So it's really, really condensed, essentially like the top 3 main bullet points that you keep seeing across job descriptions is what's going to go in this. Again, 95% of the information you're going to want to add here is going to be found in those job descriptions that you research. So the more you read, the easier it's going to be for you to notice patterns of what's being repeated. Whenever something's being repeated multiple times, that's what's important. So a couple of examples. You'll see here, again, same format, 12 plus years as what? In both the agency and brand side, right? And then these are the things that they cared about doing. These are the types of companies that they worked with. They had some really impressive stats, so they also include some career highlights. Now, I'm not going to read through all of the examples, but I'm going to just leave them up for a minute so you can pause and just you can read through these and start to notice the patterns, all of that good stuff. Same thing, skill set, they put this first with the number of years of experience across these types of industries, across these types of companies, what they cared about. This is pretty much the same for every product program or project manager, is that you delivered projects or programs ahead of schedule and under budget. And what those budgets are, how many stakeholders were involved or direct reports, all of that good stuff. Same with this one. And you'll notice here, so this is somebody, she had 12 plus years of experience, but she decided not to use a career highlights. That is a little bit of a personal preference and also dependent on how limited your space is throughout the rest of the resume as well. So that's a little bit of an art in that case, not a science. Similarly here, solutions engineer, number of years across these types of industries, working with these types of folks because it was repeated across job descriptions, and proven track record of these things that was repeated across job descriptions, key achievements, just the quantifiable wins that they have had throughout their career. Now, really, actually something that is really important, if you are going for a more executive role, almost every executive, we want to have a key achievements or career highlights. And then also, when you are going for an executive or a leadership role, this one bullet point is so valuable. Talking about how many folks you helped get promoted through mentorship and training, because as you grow into these leadership roles, you're facing companies who don't care so much about your skills. They care that you can disperse your knowledge and your skills to other people to really scale a company. Two more examples, over 10 years of experience doing this. And this is pretty classic for any customer success person. How much ARR, what was your retention rate, what was your CSAT or NPS? Those are the main things that they're going to care about there. And last but not least, I won't read through this whole thing. This is somebody who's extremely impressive, of course, and so that's why it's a little bit longer. He's more senior in his career, and he's just had some really awesome stats along the way. So that is the contact details or your header along with your summary. Next is going to be your selected experience. Now, very important to note here. We usually use the title selected, especially for people who are more senior in your career, because we're only going to include usually about 10 years of experience in this section. We will save everything that is older and or not relevant for this other professional experience section, or sometimes we even leave it off altogether. So let's dive into the selected experience. This is where the formatting of this is going to be company name over here, the years. So this could be, 2020 to present, 2019 to 2020, whatever your years are, you put them right here. The title of your position goes right underneath the company name, and all of this gets bolded. So this section, as I mentioned, the responsibilities are where you're going to have the generic stuff. The key achievements or accomplishments or impact, you'll see people use several different phrasings there. That's where you're going to get really specific into the quantifiable things that you did to actually move the needle for the company. So, as I mentioned, these quantifiable accomplishments, every single job that you have listed should have these, because what happens is this is what allows you to stand out from everybody else who's very generic or just using only using the keywords, or they're using one resume for multiple roles. So when they talk about what they did at their jobs, they stay very generic. They don't want to take credit for things. They don't want to brag about things, whatever the case may be. You are not most people. We want to articulate the impact of what you did. That's going to be a very important process, or a very important part of your resume to actually convert in your, not only on job boards and all of that good stuff, but far more importantly, when you are sending your outreach messages on LinkedIn or email, people will look at your LinkedIn profile, which will be just a mirror of your resume. And when they see the quantifiable impact, that's what catches their eyes almost every time. And we'll talk more about that in the interview and conversation stage. So for your accomplishments, here are the requirements to know whether or not it is an accomplishment or if it's an accomplishment versus a responsibility. There's no fluff in accomplishments. There's no quick learner, demonstrated patience, none of that stuff. It is quantifiable, metrics and results driven. Quantifiably, I moved the needle by this much. So it could be I reduced time or I saved time. Could be I increased revenue, I generated revenue, I reduced costs, or I increased profits, or I improved efficiencies, or I accomplished 97% of projects ahead of schedule, under budget, resulting in whatever the case may be. Or as we already saw, one of those career highlights, I got promoted or I helped other folks get promoted. Those are going to be accomplishments. And when we talk about fluff, pretty much anything that is not quantifiable is fluff. So all of these words, we delete these right away. These words don't actually mean anything. So they don't have any place on your resume. Or another way of saying this is like, they're not verifiable. Like nobody could verify that you are fast-paced or team player. Like those are things that you would have to demonstrate, and then you could verify like the quantifiable outcome. So that's just like a little thought exercise to go through. Now, here's where a lot of people get caught up because they're saying like, okay, is it verifiable? Like, I don't know. I can't remember if it was 1.2 million or 1.4 million. That does not matter. In terms of like, we want it to pass the test that it is verifiable, it's quantifiable, something that could be verified, but HR of a new company is not going to have the ability to go verify it. We want to get in the ballpark. So if you're like, oh, man, I can't remember if it was 12 million or 14 million. You can pick either. You could say 12 plus million, but you could not say 12 billion. Like you cannot stretch these numbers where it's like, oh, man, I don't know if it was 3 or 5 or if it was 54. It's like, no, nobody's going to believe that you can't remember if you were dealing with a $3 or $4 million P&L or a $54 million P&L. It's got to be within reason of what you were doing, and just demonstrate. What's more important is demonstrating the impact. So it was, I increased by roughly this much. I decreased by roughly this much. What that does is it shows a recruiter, it shows a hiring manager, it shows executives that it demonstrates that you care about the company as a whole, not just the little part that you played. So very, very important there. The other thing is contract jobs usually won't show up on employment searches. So for folks who have a gap, but they're like, yeah, I just kind of like putzed around and, built some websites on the side, or I just coded some things, or I just whatever. Oftentimes you can just put that as contract work. Those won't show up. Again, use that very sparingly, or kind of as needed, especially if you have cool things that you want to, talk about. So let's get into some examples of what that actually looks like. So with the selected experience section, this is where you're going a little bit more in depth. These are the broad, general terms or keyword phrases that you will put in here. These key achievements are going to be very specific. Nobody is going to be searching for, did anybody, expand EG's presence into LATAM region? No, probably not. Did they grow social media followers? Maybe that they're searching for that, but the specifics of what they did is what's down here. So this person actually included a couple of key metrics up here, but you'll notice they didn't talk very much about how they increased it. So this is where, again, a little bit of an art versus an exact science, but you'll see down here, key achievements, helped 7 of these folks get promoted, achieved this, increased this, right? Increased this, grew by this, elevated by this. And then these are a little bit more generic that anybody could say. Again, here, and I won't read through all of these, but I want to really just emphasize, generated this, saved time, built the first thing that resulted in this, established something that saved the company 30 grand. And then down here, increased, reduced, like that's going to be your indicator of like, okay, moved the needle metrics versus what you did, or like the responsibilities that you had. Similarly here, identified these upsells, resulted in this, increased, presented this. Oh, this is actually a good example. If you were selected as a subject matter expert, or you presented at something, or you helped raise a certain amount of money, or you presented to help raise, whatever the case may be. Those things can oftentimes go into the impact or accomplishment, key achievements, however you would like to title it. And then again, down here, increased 10% increase, achieved 60% conversion rate, closed this much, helped these folks get promoted. Very, very important that you have those. These are more generic. And then 2 more here. Again, business impact, improved, coached the team, which grew, maintained. You could also do maintain. If you maintain churn levels or maintained, things like that, grew, you helped these folks get promoted, you developed something brand new that resulted in, this thing. And then the last example here, this happens more so with executives, but it's not mandatory for anybody. If you would rather do your responsibilities in a paragraph, that works as well, so long as you still have accomplishments segmented out. Your quantifiable things are just in bullet points below. So you'll see lifted, increased, managed, which accounted for this percentage, increased. And then this right here to added like the 5 million apps or subscriptions right there. So this is an alternative that you can use if you would rather have a paragraph format here. There's not a right or a wrong. Ultimately, it usually comes down to just spacing preference. This allows you oftentimes to get a little bit more on the page, which is why we also use it for executives. We can sneak in a little bit more. So contact or your header is done. Summary, we just went through the responsibilities and accomplishments, the importance of having the quantifiable accomplishments there. Very, very, very important. Next is going to be for the other professional experience, so to speak. And this was going to include old career experience or you'll see some volunteer stuff in here as well. So this is going to have far less information, far less detail, because again, it's not going to be relevant to the specific role that you're going for now. If you are looking to be a chief marketing officer and you used to be a copywriter, it's like, okay, people are going to probably assume that, you have some sort of copywriting skills or some sort of copywriting knowledge. It's not necessary for you to talk about all the things that you did as a copywriter. Now, if you were a copywriter at Ogilvy Agency, like that holds a little bit of weight. Maybe you want to add that, or maybe you used to work at LinkedIn or Google or Microsoft, whatever the case may be. Having those brand names can be helpful for you. And they can be helpful for you in your outreach, which we'll talk about in part 3. So other professional experience, here's just a couple of examples. This person did not have more than 10 years of experience that needed to go on here, but she had really cool volunteer experience that has a really strong network. The Wharton School has a really strong alumni. UPenn has a really strong alumni program. So those are things that are helpful to share. This was somebody that had added experience. She was a special ed teacher before she went into software and solutions engineering. That makes for a very good story that helps her stand out from other folks. So that's where having something like this, even though this isn't necessarily relevant, this becomes really powerful as part of her story. So that we include that there. Very simple. Don't want you to overthink this at all. Last main, I would say, like straightforward section is going to be your education. And again, don't want you to overthink this. This is just going to be your college name, or university name, your major, and any relevant certifications that you have. So this person didn't have any certifications, but they went to college, so they just listed it out right there. Education, it's the university name, the degree that you got, and what it was in. Same here, degree, or the college, the degree. Then she actually put some of her awards that she did as well. That is not necessary. But if you have the space, it's not going to hurt you usually. Similarly here, all of the degrees that this person had. Similarly here, the degrees, they had some extra space, so they wanted to fill it up with putting it on a different line. Generally, most folks only have this, where we're trying to keep this, like this is not going to be super relevant to anybody, so we're trying to keep it as small as possible. Now, the last person that I've been showing this example, who has some seriously incredible things, he didn't even have a college degree. So sometimes what happens is we'll show people these resumes, and it's funny because before we wrote these resumes, a lot of these people felt like I didn't really do anything. And it wasn't until they did their career audit that they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm like, I've actually done some things. And then by the time they're done looking at their resume, they're like, this looks pretty good. And sometimes they even get some imposter syndrome where they're like, did I actually, like, can I don't feel that special. And then other people looking at them won't be like, are you kidding me? I would kill for those stats. That was great. That was great. Whatever the case may be. That's all very, very normal. And you do not need a fancy university or a fancy company name to achieve your career nirvana and become like, you don't even need that to get a really good paying job at a great company that you enjoy working at. Like, none of those things are prerequisites for having a really great job that you're excited about. And I'll even go so far, like, for those of you who don't know my story, the first $300,000 jobs that I got, they were all at companies that nobody had ever heard of. I did not go to a fancy college. I went to a very small college university that nobody had ever heard of. And I didn't have any impressive company names on my resume. I applied to companies that nobody's ever, and worked at companies that nobody had ever even heard the name of, but was getting paid $300,000 from these companies who were doing less than $10 million in revenue. And the only people who'd ever heard of them were very, very niche specific, but they were jobs that I absolutely loved. So you do not need anything fancy whatsoever on this resume to tip the scales in your favor. Is it helpful if you went to Wharton and UPenn? Sure, but that does not guarantee you a job. Maybe it helps you get a couple of conversations, but what is far more important than your title or your company names or your education is the outreach messages that you send, and then the words that actually come out of your mouth during the interview process. So I just want you to remember that if you're getting caught up right now or you're feeling worried, we'll make sure you get through the resume as quickly as possible so you can get to the stuff that actually will move the needle for your job search. So those are the main things right there. This last part of key skills and tools and sometimes interests, this is going to be where you can do a lot of keyword stuffing so that you are showing up on job searches from recruiters and hiring managers. So we'll get into that a little bit, what they actually see when they're searching. That'll actually probably be in the next module if you're watching this. And it will show you exactly what pops up on their end when they're searching for program manager, product manager. They'll type in, project manager, artifacts, and document gathering, and budget, and they'll type in all of these specific keywords. And if you have those keywords on your resume, you will rank higher than folks who do not have those keywords. So this is where we can really stuff them in. And then if you would like to include interest, some people do that as well. Just helps to build rapport sometimes with an interviewer if they see something that, is unique or that they also, enjoy. So you'll see a couple examples of that. So this is somebody who you're just literally listing out the skills and the tools that you saw repeated across the job descriptions. The interests, you can be as generic or as specific as you like there. Key skills and tools, again, program project manager. Then the interest, if you talk to somebody who's also a tennis player or loves traveling or loves dancing, it's like, okay, instant rapport from having those things listed. And again, of course, make sure there's nothing inappropriate in your interest. That's very important as well. I think that goes without saying. This is somebody who did not do interest. Again, it is very optional. And let's see, last one. Cool. All right. Now, a couple of myth busting before we go to the resume. Your resume can be more than one page. There's a lot of people out there that say it can only be one page or it can only be 2 pages. It's very rare that you do need to go on to 3 pages. It's very rare that anybody has actually relevant experience that requires 3 pages to talk about. So if you have more than 5 years of experience, which pretty much everybody in this program does, totally fine to be on 2 pages. If you have more than 15 years of experience and a really, really good reason to go on to 3, we can talk about it. Resumes should not have your entire work history. Only things that are relevant, and usually it's only from the last 10 years. And you do not need a new resume for every job you apply to. That is why we spend so much time on the career nirvana, the career audit, so that we know exactly which single job you are targeting so that your resume will be applicable to that job. Now, sometimes there is going to be something glaringly obvious that you left out that this company cares about. That's when you will go ahead and add to your resume whatever that one thing is. And generally, it's just a keyword that you can put right into the keyword section. Maybe they care about a stat. Maybe they care about, a budget and you didn't have a budget in there, whatever the case may be. Then you would go in and add. But, this is something that should take 5-10 minutes max for you to do if you're applying to a role. And again, why do we spend such little time on the resume? It's because it is never going to be the thing that actually gets you the job. It can prevent you from getting a conversation. But then once you're having those conversations and those recruiter calls and those interviews, it's the words that come out of your mouth during that process that are what actually matters. So that's why we spend so much of our time in interview preps and interview debriefs and such little time on the resume. It is not going to be the thing that moves the needle for you. So final step of the resume is just simply, once you have that text only version of it, you go to File, you will click download and then turn it into a PDF so that you can send it to folks when they ask for it and upload it to job boards. And then congrats, your resume is finito. So next is your LinkedIn profile. This is going to be very easy at this point. Step 1, we're going to update the headline. Step 2 is going to be updating your photo. Step 3, updating your about section. And then step 4 is updating your experience. Recommendations are going to be optional. So we're going to go through each of these step by step. Your headline. This is where you want to have something that's very simple, that just very clearly states what you do, the industry, and some folks will also have some quantifiable impact right here as well. So I'll give you a couple of examples of that. The headshot, again, we want to make sure it's close up with your face. No selfies, no like wedding pictures where you cropped out all of the other bridesmaids. And you can even put it into photofeeler.com to test things like your competence, people's opinions of your competence, your likability, and your influence. So that is going to be the only thing that's really unique to your LinkedIn profile, is going to be those aspects right there. So again, very simple, look nice. Your cover photo, this is not super important. Some people will make something, specific. Just don't do anything that's going to be procrastinating you from getting to the real stuff. So a couple of headline examples. Again, it's going to be your job title, industry or your area of expertise, and then some sort of unique value as a general rule. And you just put those little bars, the up and down bars in between. So these are real examples of folks that went through the program, that went through it fairly quickly and got good results from their LinkedIn profile. So I won't read through all of these, but I will emphasize this one. For a project manager, this works extremely well. And then it can be as simple. This also works extremely well for folks, just very simply what it is that you do. And then we will get to the about. So this is going to be very simple. As we talked about here, this is going to be a copy and paste of your summary, your highlight section, your career highlight section, I should say, the skills, tools, and interests from your resume. So you will start by just copying and pasting those things. And then you can include, or we recommend including, a call to action, let's connect, or feel free to reach out. And then you can put your email and phone number or whatever contact is you'd like. Check out my portfolio, visit my website if you have something like that. And that is what it'll look like. Now, the optional thing is you could add a sentence at the beginning here, or a little paragraph at the beginning that is very personal, not quote unquote resume speak, where it's like, I accidentally fell into product management after blah, blah, blah happened. And so it's just this little personalized thing that is really easy for somebody to read and gets them to know you and your personality a little bit better. So next is going to be your experience. This is the easiest part. This, you don't have to make any adjustments. You literally just copy and paste the bullet points or the paragraph from your resume, and then the impact. It's just going to look just like this. So this is either going to be in paragraph if you had a paragraph on your resume, or it's going to be bullet points and then the impact. I like to put a little space there like she did. That is all you have to do right there. So update your headline, make sure you've got a nice photo, copy and paste into your about section, copy and paste into your experience. If you would like to have recommendations, you can write a few for other folks. You can ask them to do the same. That is not mandatory. at all. And that is your LinkedIn. That is everything. So if you have any questions, of course, just let us know, and I will see you in the next one.